Good morning, everyone. Coming to you actually from our physical headquarters at Silicon Harlem at 148th Street and 8th Avenue. And my name is Bruce Lincoln. I'm the co-founder and the chief technology officer of Silicon Harlem. And as you've heard Clayton speak to the focus we have, as well as how that's been supported through Dr. Cerf and Commissioner Rosenworcel, we're really excited about having this virtual summit. And this is an important part of our program where we bring to you our elected officials. Quite often unsung, these tireless workers strive on our behalf. And one of their new areas of focus is ensure that we all have access to the benefits of the digital economy, to the internet. And so we're joined today by a number of our illustrious elected officials. So they're going to basically share remarks as they're thinking around how to advance humanity, what they're doing in this area. And so we're going to have Adriano Espaillat, our congressman from the 13th district, join us. Inez Dickens, a state assembly person from Harlem. Ben Kallos, who's currently a city council person who's now running for borough president, who comes from Silicon Alley. And Al Taylor, who's also a state assemblyman who actually represents our district where we're located. And then we're going to be spoken to from the esteemed Lloyd Williams, who is the head of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. So without further ado, I'd like to just have our officials begin to speak to us and share with the audience. So we're still waiting to be joined by some of our electeds. So it might be useful to just, from an overarching standpoint, look at what we're doing today. The idea of advancing humanity is very important to us because we think with the COVID pandemic and what it's shown from the standpoint, just as Vince said, it's shown the fault lines or the fissures where we have to do better when it comes to making sure that everyone has access to not simply the internet, but to the kind of opportunities that the internet can make possible in people's lives. So it's almost as if we have to go to ground zero and start all over again, but this time aided with what we have learned over the course of the period of time that we've been working on addressing this issue. The original idea of the digital divide was posed in a white paper that was crafted by Larry Irving when he was at the National Telecommunications Information Administration. That was in 1998. Here we are in 2020, and a pandemic has shown us that though we've made progress, we also have a great deal to go. I believe that we have Ben Kallos, who's on the call.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm Councilmember Ben Kallos. That's at Ben Kallos on social media, even GitHub, where we post legislation for you to pull, edit, and push back so that we can write better laws. Because after all, our laws are the source code of our society, of how our government operates. And as far as I know, I'm the only elected official who's also a software developer. I want to start with a huge thank you to Clayton Banks, CEO of Silicon Harlem, for hosting this annual summit. That is, if it is the real Clayton and not the holographic Clayton from last year. Ever since everything's virtual, I don't know if the holographic Clayton has fully taken over. I also want to thank his partner in tech and co-founder, Bruce Lincoln. When the pandemic began, a lot of those with privilege began this rush to work and learn online. And many of us concerned about who we were about to leave behind. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Clayton reached out to me and we had a conversation about, we have this program that I worked with now Attorney General Tish James to secure from Spectrum called Spectrum Internet Assist. And it said that if you're on free or reduced school lunch or supplemental income from Social Security, you could get 30 megabit broadband for $14.99 a month. But there are a lot of folks who aren't quite at that level of poverty that ended up getting left out, and we were concerned about what would happen. So working with Clayton, we reached out to Spectrum, And Spectrum, about 24, 48 hours later, came back and said, we will make internet free for the first 60 days of this pandemic to any student. Doesn't matter their income, it doesn't matter their grade, even if they're in college, we will get them that internet. And they've actually renewed that offer. They've continued to offer it. Currently, as we speak, 60 days free. I believe Altice has made a similar offer. And so it is Silicon Harlem that is literally leading the way in this nation, speaking truth to power. And as we went through our city's drastic budget cuts by billions, we went through the budget together and we noticed that the city of New York was planning to spend $84 million on textbooks this year, at a time that we were cutting $1 billion from the Department of Education. And I don't know how many other people went to public school like I did, but my textbooks were about white people from Europe, old white men. And as far as I can tell from the textbooks I've seen since I've been an elected official, our textbooks are still about white men, and that's racist. And we have these racist textbooks written for the state of Texas that don't reflect the diversity of our city. And so I was proud to join Clayton Banks in an op-ed that we wrote in the Daily News saying that we should take this $84 million, especially as everyone's learning online, we're not really using paper as much anymore, and create open digital materials that anyone could use, that our faculty and academics could update to reflect the history of our country, of all the women and people of color who have had huge contributions that would otherwise be omitted from our textbooks. Also, when the city went to get laptops, one of the things that I did with Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer is it turns out the two of us had been buying laptops for everyone since the very beginning of us being elected officials. And that meant that in our schools, the kids got sent home with laptops. And the saddest part is the city spent about $250, $300 million buying iPads with 4G LTE for kids. And listen, I love gadgets and games as much as the next kid, but without a keyboard, that creates this gap between the kids who are learning with broadband and a laptop and the kids who are learning on an internet device that doesn't even have a keyboard. So we work together to really hold the city accountable. And I'm hoping that we can work with Silicon Harlem. There's an internet master plan, and they've said they're going to make $157 million available. And I'll say, before I got elected, 1 in 4 households in Brooklyn didn't have broadband. 1 in 3 in the Bronx. That's pretty horrible. Over the past couple of years, since Internet Assist is launched, we're at about 13 to 22% don't have internet in the household, which is a pretty dramatic change. But there's still that last mile of folks who haven't gotten it, and these people are low income. They're in communities of color. And one of the things that I just want to talk about here, I'm contracts chair. My goal is to get more money into women and businesses owned by women and people of color. And so why can't we take this $157 million that we're talking about, invest it into organizations that are led by Black men and women and people of color that know the communities, that live in the communities, and can get them connected. So I'm hoping we can do that. It's the right thing to do for equity. And I see Bruce is back on, and I'm probably over my 5 minutes. So I'll turn it back over to Congressmember Espaillat, who is leading the fight in Washington.
Ben, thank you so much. Congressman, please.
Thank you for all the participants, particularly for the students that are on, that are part of my app challenge for Washington. And so we're looking at great challenges. Every great crisis, and undoubtedly the COVID-19 pandemic has been the biggest crisis of our lifetime. Every great crisis also will bring about great opportunities to move forward. And this has been a horrible crisis. Close to 220,000 people have died, 7 million plus have tested positive. We're sort of like bracing for a second phase of the pandemic. We have the flu season upon us. We have unemployment. We have businesses struggling to open up and shutting down. So this is truly the crisis of our lifetimes. But it also provides great opportunities for us to reinvent ourselves, better, stronger, more resilient. And I think that the crisis has, in fact, once again, revealed what many of us already knew, that our communities are disconnected, and that, in fact, we have a disparity. We have a huge gap in access to Wi-Fi, to broadband. And so it is imperative that we work together in making sure that we have a major initiative, an infrastructure project that will include not just rural, but urban broadband, 5G, that we begin to connect all of our neighborhoods, particularly those that have been traditionally been disenfranchised, to connect them, to ensure that in the future, children will be able to access and benefit from distance learning. That the healthcare system, which is now transitioning to telehealth, will ensure that seniors will be able to contact their doctor without having to go to their local offices, practices, and be able to have the healthcare that they need. But that also small businesses reinvent themselves in a competitive way. Small businesses will now rely more and more on technology to provide goods and services. And unfortunately, the pandemic also revealed that our businesses are not really at that level. They're not as competitive as they should be. And so this is the great challenge of our lifetime. We must invest the dollars. It should be a $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion initiative of infrastructure projects that will ensure that we not only reinvent our rural bridges and tunnels, but also that we do it in a smart way with the state-of-the-art technology that brings us to another level. Now, I have been working with former Congressman Charlie Rangel in establishing at City College, the Institute for Infrastructure and Transportation. Now, transportation and infrastructure is no longer the traditional field where you had the sandhogs digging out the 2nd Avenue subway. It is highly complex and technological. And so we must train the workforce for these major projects, the Gateway Tunnel, the second phase of the 2nd Avenue subway, the airports that are being built across the state. So these are all very important projects for our economy and our region. And we must have the workforce trained for them to be very successful. And that requires, of course, training in the latest technology, access to broadband, 5G, and the latest opportunities in the highway, in the technological highway that's available today. So I want to thank the 3 students that are on the call that are part of my app challenge. Thank you for participating. And this is the first year that we're doing it. We're going to continue to do it in collaboration with Silicon Harlem. And I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation. This juncture, this crossroad that we're facing of historic proportions will determine really the future of our nation. And you are the protagonists. You are the leaders that will make it happen. Thank you so much and keep the faith. Thank you, Clayton, for your leadership as well, Bruce.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And your tireless work doesn't go unsung.
If you don't mind, Bruce, I'm going to chime in and say a big thank you to the Congressman. We are so grateful because the students that we have working on the app challenge are top students in their schools here in our district 13, and it turned out that throughout the development that they've been developing their app, they've had sketchy internet. Top students, sketchy internet. So you and I got to get together and fix this.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right.
Thank you, Clayton. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
So we're waiting to be joined by Al Taylor. As you can imagine, as we're talking about having issues with the internet, he unfortunately has run into something that will get fixed momentarily.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
Bruce. Good morning, everybody. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and
Yes,
clear.
we
Go
can hear
ahead.
you.
Oh, man. Thank God for you guys. Oh, my goodness. And what you teach and do. I've been circling in orbit somewhere for like 12 minutes because I wanted to be early, and I got into something and it says Virtual Silicon Harlem, and I'm sitting here like, there's nobody here but me. And my staff is calling me like, where are you? I'm like, I'm here with all this apparatus. And I can certainly appreciate what you all are doing and have done. Again, good morning all, especially to Clayton and Bruce. Thank you for the tireless efforts that you do, not only for our community, but for this state and this nation. And just before I read my statement that I have put together, I just want to thank you all for the tireless work that you've done, especially the blessing that you guys were able to help with providing over, hundreds of thermometers to folks when we did the back to school. And I just saw a photo, Clayton, the other day in the last 3 days, and you were literally lifting and putting these boxes into a vehicle. So I can't thank you enough. So you're not just tech savvy, you're physically fit to do the job as well. So thank you again for all that you do. I want to read a little bit of what I've prepared for this morning. Never in our lifetime have we seen such issues as we're facing this pandemic, COVID-19, how critical technology and digital infrastructure has become in our day-to-day lives. I don't have to tell you how this pandemic has upended life as we know it. This health crisis has affected each and every one of us. Since March, we've seen a dramatic shift in how we do business, how our kids are educated, how we interact with each other. Some offices have shifted their workplaces online. Many schools are operating remotely. Meetings that used to take place in person now happen via Zoom, Skype, and other digital platforms, such as what we're doing this morning. We started to even buy the basic necessities to avoid risking exposure. And we go out less and less because we do more and more FaceTime and telecommunication as well. All of this is only possible thanks to the advancements we've made in technology on online platforms. On the flip side, everyone excluded from this digital revolution will have fighting to catch up. I just want to add, even here, and Clayton and I first started speaking some years, the fact that we were already on unequal footing, and this pandemic totally exposed that. You were setting that alarm well in advance. At least for me, I understood it back then. And hopefully we can get national and state and local legislation that will start to make it a reality. I think one of the things I recall you saying was that it's not a luxury, and every home needs this in order to just be relevant. So thank you again. Many New Yorkers don't have the luxury of working from home during this pandemic. You have our essential workers who continue to go out serving the communities while putting their own health risk and well-being at stake, and even their home, coming home with the possibility of infecting their families as they went out and worked day in and day out tirelessly. Many others have no choice and were forced to make impossible decisions because they could not continue working, or if they continued working, they ran that risk. But if they stopped working, it would take away income, the only source of income. So their paycheck was a lifeline through all of this, and they worked. We have lost over 200,000 souls during this pandemic, over 200,000. And sadly, it's starting to peak, and it's not over yet. And as we implement new measures to stay safe and keep our communities healthy, technology will play a bigger and bigger role in all our lives. In the 21st century, one of the keys to advancing humanity and advancing disadvantaged communities is digital inclusion. And this year has shown that needs to be a priority across the board. This is no longer an abstract problem or an issue we can fix by, kicking the can down the road and doing it tomorrow. When all classes went remote across New York City, the Department of Education had to connect hundreds of thousands of students with devices so they could continue their studies from home. Thousands of students had to be reissued devices with remote hotspot connectivity because their living situation did not have Wi-Fi or internet access available. In such a digital connected world, we have to do better by our youth and by our seniors. We have to do better by our communities. Technology and digital platforms hold all the potential to be incredible, life-changing tools. We have to use technology to bridge the gaps that exist between the haves and the have-nots. As government representatives, we have the power to support technology businesses. In e-commerce, we have the power to help our schools receive the funding and technology they need to usher future generations into technology-driven future. We also have the power to ensure the future is inclusive. We have the power to ensure every child has access to technology and resources that only exist and didn't happen during our ancestors' wildest dreams. That's why I'm thrilled to support the social ventures like Silicon Harlem, which has committed to giving back to our communities through focusing on crucial infrastructure needs. Silicon Harlem is a groundbreaking tech and innovation hub dedicated to growing Upper Manhattan's tech ecosystem through increasing broadband access, expanding digital literacy, and launching a revolutionary smart city, smart community initiative. And in closing, I want to say closing this digital gap and getting our neighborhoods online opens so many doors for our communities, from jobs to healthcare services to educational tools. Technology has given so many the opportunity of upward mobility in society. And I would like to thank Silicon Harlem for giving our communities such as Harlem and New York City and the state as a whole a much needed leg up so we of all ages can benefit from this wave of technology. And we all come stronger. When we all come out stronger, once we overcome this terrible health crisis. And again, I just want to thank you and Bruce, Clayton, you and Bruce and your team for all that you do and being a visionary. Thank you guys so much. And I'm available for questions, or I follow directions very well also.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman. That was a cogent set of remarks and very key to what is important now. We're going to move forward with the program. I'd also, just before we close out this session, I'd like to thank Ben for his remarks and his thoughts. I'd also like to thank the Congressman, Adriano Espaillat, and once again, yourself, Assemblyman Taylor. Thank you so much. We're going to move on with the program. And now we have a slideshow that will give you a sense of sort of the range of areas that we are involved in and the lives that we touch.